just can't get across the finish line. And right now, where you guys are in the standings, like you're in the hunt, right? You're tied with four other teams with 12 points, but you guys are all right on Dignitas's heels, which um, I think Dig had a rough go this past weekend as well.
Yeah, they went 1-3.
Yeah, so I mean, you guys are right there. I had actually kind of forgot you have a vast experience of coaching. I'm not gonna lie. I forgot how many different regions you have coached in and all the players that you have coached. Um, I just gotta ask this question off the bat. To you, what makes a difference? I mean, we're your tweet that got us talking was the boot camping stuff. But before we get into that, what is something that just makes the difference between all the different regions that you have seen?
Culture. I mean, it's such an obvious answer, right? But how you interact and how Brazilians practice is not the same to how North Americans practice, and the same professionalism in the Middle East won't be seen in Europe and all those types of things. And I guess to put it easily, like NA is probably the most solo focused. Brazil is typically the hardest working. They're just not really. They don't have all the staff around them that can actually make them succeed. Mina is a lot of the same thing. It's a lot of talented players, not really the infrastructure, and then Europe has everything kind of combined at the end where it is just a recipe for success.
It's interesting to hear you say that because we had the president of Deleted XD Gaming on last week, and he was saying from his perspective, when it came to contracts and whatnot, that he didn't want to put hours on his players. He just wants them to go out and have fun. Which we commended him for that. Like that's awesome. But I did start to think kind of after the episode, like that doesn't sound like a traditional recipe for having a team actually like go win it all and be at the top.
I don't. I think there's a self governance as well because like there's been certain teams that just AFK their hours anyway. So it's like, yeah,
Oh, wait, hang on. Hey, Papa Rizzo, that was to you.
oh god, yo, yeah, that dude has never come off his game. I have him on my friends list too. That dude just sticks at what is it, like 218 hours past 2 weeks. It's ridiculous.
Oh, that's funny. But yeah, because you got so I mean, Bucket, would you agree? That's kind of what we've noticed in everybody that we have talked to in the last year is that it's culture. There's a lot of how kids are coming up and applying it to the scene. Do you feel that way? Are you reading it the same way?
Yeah, it's like Nick said, I think it's the obvious answer, but it's for a reason. Every single one of these regions has their own we say see it, the play style, but how did they get to that play style and what draws them to the things and does the dynamic and the things around them, their environment affect them? And Nick, obviously, with his extensive coaching resume here, I knew you had coached a few teams, but I'm looking back. I mean, 2020 of February all the way to now, like a lot of teams, and these teams are um, elite. You've coached some
Elite,
elite people
yes.
in various regions, so that's super interesting to me. What minus the teams and the players and all that, do you have to change up your coaching style because you know the cultures are like that just to get advance in the region that you're currently in, or kind of speak a little bit to how you play that game?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a difference in how I talk to an American versus how I talk to a European. Like, I hinted at it with Yoris, where because of his background, where he comes from football and I come from player soccer, like the manager or coach kind of has responsibility. Him and I can butt heads and we can move on from it afterwards because he grew up as a kid where the coach would yell at you. It's not necessarily yelling at you, it's yelling at the team to try and get a reaction. Whereas someone like Jack, we didn't necessarily get on as well because Jack came from tennis. It's a more individualized sport. You're talking a lot more one on one. It's a different relationship with the coach. So those two alone, even in the same region, same team, I'd get two completely different reactions where one was motivation, where one was almost kind of going a bit into a shell. And Jack's, I'm sure, grown a little bit as well. And I've also grown a bit as a coach, but it's still that same idea. Like Culturally, yeah, with the Brazilians, it was a bit more how do we have fun? How do we enjoy this? How do we just work, but still enjoy what we're doing? How do we keep the idea that we're going to play beautifully? With the Middle Eastern team, um, it was weird, like even getting like professionalism within the entire region, where it reminded me a lot of Brazil or South America when I was there. Which that was RLCSX. When I joined, no one in the region booked scrims more than a day ahead. Like you'd message like, "Hey, do you want to scrim today?" And it doesn't sound that crazy, or it sounds crazy, but when these guys are getting paid the salaries they are, man, you get why it's unprofessional. And now South America is somewhat livable for Brazil salaries, but not for North American style. And Middle East is just they have a ton of money, ton of talent, and they don't necessarily have staff that's come up because they haven't been a region long enough. Um, Europeans are a little bit more winning focused. You can kind of say anything to them, and everyone's under the ideology that, like, yeah, it's for the better if we win. North Americans, that probably have to be a little bit more sweet. Um, no, like, it sounds weird, but it is true.
No, it makes sense. I've done a lot of like world traveling in my career, and I think that's kind of what I've brought into it with the conversations that we've had on here. Is that when it comes to North American players, there's a mindset right now where like they get signed to an org, and I'm just reading this as an outsider, but like they get signed to an org and they think I'm here, like
Yeah.
I'm here. Why are you expecting me to do more? And it seems like the ones that have had long, actual like good careers are, the ones who bring in that talent of, yeah, I'm here, but I still need to keep working. Like the work's not done. So to hear you say that, it's kind of just realizing that does seem to be what is going on right now in the scene.
Yeah, I mean, there's an epidemic, specifically in North America last season. This season, a lot's changed, but I wouldn't give that much of a damn in scrims. Like, even now, there's still some scrims against certain teams where you're like, yeah, like, we're going to scrim for an hour. We'll get to 3, 4, maybe 5 good games, but it's just not the same intensity. Whereas, like, to be honest, I still think scrim should be best of sevens, where I know if I lose 4 games, the scrim's done. I got to go find something else. Whereas it's 2 teams completely pushing their limit, win or lose. Yeah, I think that's better. And unless you want to specifically book an hour block of, okay, both teams are playing purely for improvement, we're going to do necessarily, or we may not necessarily do the smartest things, but we want to test things, go
Uh-huh.
for it.